Do you think that it's almost taken it too far now where we don't care so much about quality? Where it's like, hey, we're just going to do things, features. But honestly, when I look at even the websites and applications for a lot of the big companies out there, if I objectively look at those and I consider how much some of these people get paid, I'm like, this thing is, I don't know how good and reliable this is. Sorry, I'm rambling on that. But the point is, do you think that we've gone from hey, we care so much about building things the right way to like, oh well, this is going to help us get with revenue, or at least the case is made that something's going to help with revenue, but at the end of the day, we know that half of the features requested really in reality are more someone thinking, oh, this should be a fun feature, but really nothing that really there's a science or logic as to how that is going to impact the bottom line. So do you think that engineers should push back more and ask for more time to actually build things the right way?
I think so. You said a lot of things. There's a lot to unpack here. So I'm just trying to think about that. So first of all, I think that building things the right way is really, really important. And I'm very proponent for good engineering. I think that's, we need that. At the same time, the problem that I see, especially in data teams and data engineering, is some people are so hooked up on building things the right way, but they're not building the right things. So, and I have this analogy that the ship is sinking and it feels like everybody's trying to get water. There's a hole in the ship and everybody's trying to get the water out or to block the hole. And the data engineering team is standing on the deck and painting it to make it nicer, right? But the ship is sinking. So if your company is going out of business, it doesn't matter if your data was real time, and it doesn't matter how well your data was modeled, and it doesn't matter, like all of that is just bullshit, right? But at the same time, if your data foundations are unreliable, and not unreliable, but are very basic and with spreadsheets and all of that, but you're able to achieve 20% growth year over year using your data, like maybe it involves a lot of manual work, maybe it's not the best, maybe it's not properly engineered, but you have been able to use your data to identify opportunities to grow the business. Like between these two options, I choose option number 2. Yeah. So good engineering is important, but not at the cost of doing the wrong things and spending time on things that nobody would care about.
That I 100% agree with that. I've been both on the over-engineering side, where I've been the one over-engineering something beyond what really the business really needed. And I've also been on the receiving end when I'm asking for something, or I've asked for something or expected something from a team, and there was engineering for the engineering's sake, just because it looked cool, because a platform or a software or whatever supported a capability, and like, well, how's that going to impact us? But at the same time, though, I think it's interesting, though, because when you say about like the sinking ship, which I think is a great analogy, at the end of the day, the goal for a business is to make money. At the end of the day, that's the purpose for a business, to make money. Whether we like it or not as engineers, it's not to have the nicest stack, it is to make money. Sometimes having the nicest stack is what helps you make the most amount of money, but not always. But the sinking ship analogy, and like, hey, there's a hole, I think does make me think too, though, of a problem that overall a lot of businesses have, and that is just communication. Because also very often we all know the joke of like, everything's a high priority. So, which is the flip side to that, right? So as an engineer, I've seen engineers that have had to also make that trade-off, like, hey, I know you're saying this is a high priority, but I know you person making this request, and I know this is not a high priority, or I know that this request is going to lead to this other request that we can just, if we get ahead of it in this way, with this more heavily engineering way, where, we're going to cover the most amount of territory. I've seen it both ways, I think, and that just is the problem of just communication, right? And ultimately, engineering teams and product teams and sales teams, everyone really on an organization needs to be aligned to like, hey, what is the ultimate goal? And that is to make money. And then you decide like, hey, what's that time frame that we're making money, that we're trying to make sure that we have? Like, are we okay with taking short-term losses for 1 month for the sake of, hey, it's 6 months, this is going to be what we need? Or, hey, we're so desperately cash strapped that if we don't ship out this feature right now, we're going to be bankrupt 2 days from now. And obviously, if that's the case, you build a database in Excel if that's what you need to do. So,
yeah. And there's another very interesting point here, which I think that sometimes on the point of over-engineering, and this is something I've been saying for a long time, is that every project has several different versions, right? So you have the 1 hour version, the 1 day version, the 1 week version, and the 1 month version. And to give an example, a friend of mine is working for a company that's building an app for therapists in the United States. I can't remember exactly what they do, but they build an app for therapists. And we're talking about their dashboards, and he said that in his top line dashboard, one of the metrics is number of therapists using the app. And I told him that's great, but this number is meaningless, right? Because it's not put into context. So I don't know what I would be interested in is the market penetration rate, right? So the number of therapists using the app over all, like the total number of therapists, right? And he said, yeah, our CEO was asking for that, but the problem is it's a very big project. And then I said, okay, so every project has several versions, the 1 hour, the 1 day, the 1 week, the 1 month. Let's see what it looks like, right? So the 1 hour version, you go on ChatGPT, you ask how many therapists are in the United States, you get a number, and you just, in your dashboard, you say, you take the number of therapists, divide by this static number, and you call it estimated market penetration rate, right? With the word estimated, this is very important because it's not the actual market penetration rate, but in 1 hour, you're already able to give them directionally an estimate of where are we, right? It may be plus minus whatever percent, may not be super accurate, but it's good enough, right? And the 1 day version, I'm sure these therapists have a, some sort of thing, they licensing thing, they need to get their licenses. So somewhere there's a list of all therapists. You can just download the file, do a one-off, like clean it up, get a more accurate number, and in 1 day you can get a number that's more accurate, and you can remove the word estimated. That's the 1 day version of the project. It's still going to be static. It's not refreshing. You haven't built pipelines. You haven't used their APIs, nothing of that sort. And then maybe that list includes all the people who have a license, even if they're not actively practicing. So maybe in 1 week, you can build something that would download it, let's say once a week, process it, clean it up, remove the ones that are not active, and then you get a more accurate version. That's the 1 week version. And the 1 month version, you can even, see how many of them work in multiple clinics, and, based on their LinkedIn and based on other data sources, and apply a bunch of heuristics. And because of that, you can count them several times because they need to pay for different licenses and whatever. So you can make a whole project out of that, but see how much you can achieve in just 1 hour. And I say all of that just because I think that a lot of engineers, when you say over-engineering, what typically happens is engineers tend to start with the 1 month version and not with the 1 hour version. They start with like, let's get all the constraints, all the complexities, all the considerations, everything. Let's put everything on the table instead of saying, what's the quickest thing I can do to add value?
Yeah. And now I will say something though, that whole concept, which I think is great, of like the 1 day, the 1 hour, the 1 day, the 1 week solution, the 1 month, whatever time frame. The one problem though that I could see practically happening in organizations is what's going to happen? We're going to come up with that 1 hour solution or 1 day solution, and then you're going to get bombarded with other sinking ship priorities. The ship is sinking here, put it out. Now you could argue. So from an engineering standpoint, I could see an engineer being like, well, I'm skeptical about that because I know what's going to happen. But at the same time, you could argue, well, if that 1 hour solution or that 1 day solution was good enough for the business need, then, and there are other things that are more important, then that's you just had to have an MVP there for that solution, and that's what it is.
But look, here's the beauty of it, right? Because each one of these versions, the 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week, they all add value, and they're all bounded in terms of the amount of work, right? So when you finish, you finish. And the beauty of that is if you do the estimate, the 1 hour version, and you never get to prioritize the 1 day or the 1 week version, maybe it's not important. Maybe estimate is good enough, right? Nobody's...
No, that's exactly the point I'm trying to make. Yeah, I agree.
Maybe it's not about precision. Maybe it doesn't matter if we're 22% or 23.7%. As long as, we're not in the 80+% market penetration rate, then we need to keep going, right? And that's good enough.
And that's where you leave documentation inside of your code. So you say, hey man, I'm sorry that my code is so bad, but hey, I still only had 1 day to do this, so tough luck, whoever has to rebuild this into something more sustainable for whenever I leave the company. So,
and this is why I said in the dashboard, like the 1 hour version, you call it estimated market penetration rate. You don't just call it market.
I like that. I think I like that approach. Otherwise it's like, hey, well, we're just magically working out the numbers.